Hello, welcome to beautiful Chopin Point here in Stamford, Connecticut, the home of Dan Malloy. And I'm making this video today to show our residents to the north, our taxpayers to the west and east, and to the Hartford Courant and every other paper that endorsed Dan Malloy, that he is not the man that you think he is. Take it from us, we're his neighbors here in Chopin, and we fought the good fight against Dan Malloy. He makes tons of campaign promises that he can't fulfill. Well, let me show you exactly why Dan Malloy is not environmentally friendly and can't fulfill his campaign promises. Come with me on a journey, and I'll show you why. Now let's take you on a journey to an unfinished capital project by Dan Malloy. This is none other than the Cummings Pier, located here in Stamford, Connecticut, at Cummings Beach. This pier was built in 1966 and spans over 320 feet out into this Long Island Sound, and yet was destroyed by Hurricane Ernesto in September 2006. Under Dan Malloy's administration, there was funds appropriated to replace the pier, and yet it still hasn't been built. So one has to ask yourselves, where's the money? Better yet, where's the pier? Ladies and gentlemen, the money from the pier, as quoted yesterday in the Stamford Advocate, as why Cummings Pier is peerless than other than the city's engineer, he said the money appropriated went towards 2008 Dan Malloy's special projects. Well, we down here in Chopin know what those special projects are, and that's the installation of soccer fields in his collapsible budget. It's unfortunate because the pier was used by everyone in Stamford. From North Stamford to the west side and east side, everyone came down here. Fishermen fished off the pier. Senior citizens would like to stroll at sunset and watch the sunset go down. And children would ride their bikes. And it's unfortunate because next month will be 4 years to the date. We still don't have a pier and we still don't have the money. Now, there was an open meeting on August 20th, 2009, and there's been only one meeting in 4 years. So you have to ask yourself, why are the residents not being told? Because everything's being covered up. This year, our two local state senators secured $750,000 from Governor Jody Rell. So hence, putting the project at over $1 million of funding. Well, if we have this kind of money, why is the work not being started, and let alone not being finished like it said so in the open meetings of their August 20th, 09 meeting? The pier will be completed by the fall of this year. And yet you can see, folks, for yourself, not so much as a stitch of work has been replaced on the pier. Again, environmentally friendly? I don't think so, Dan. Here we are at the West Beach Park Fields with Dan Malloy's signature of approval on a rock. Let me show you exactly what these fields are now. Otherwise known as Dan Malloy's Field of Dreams, ladies and gentlemen, this used to be an open park, grass park, for all the residents in Stamford to use. Now granted, the grass wasn't always great and needed some work to be done, but I assure you that soccer fields exist here now. Dan Malloy automatically got $6.2 million available for this 2008 collapsible special projects budget. Essentially, I said before, he robbed from Peter to pay from Paul. He took the money from the Capital Pier project and put it into his 2008 budget to make the fields affordable. He broke the city's charter by installing these fields. I know my group has sued, Save West Beach Park sued Dan Malloy's administration and 9 city officials over these fields about the way they went installing these fields. Not only he did not apply for a coastal area management permit, which is by law required by the DEP before these fields were ever installed. Well, unfortunately, they broke ground and had half the project completed and then filed the CAM application because they didn't know they had to. Also, here are a couple of key facts. We did an analysis of what these fields would cost, and currently, at the Stamford cost for synthetic turf fields, and there's 3 of them in the city of Stamford. One here, one at Leone Park, and one at West Hill High School. This field alone cost $2.952 million to install. Whereas if they had grass, $999,600. And yet, these fields were installed with 20-year bonds yet only have a life expectancy of 7 to maybe 10 years. So I ask you, is that fiscally responsible? I don't think so. On top of which, we have here, as in our Stanford Advocate, a list of everyone that was affiliated with these fields. From Field Turf Tarkett, the manufacturer, to the design and engineering companies, to the attorneys, to virtually everyone associated with these fields. These fields have become exclusive to one group, and that's a soccer group. There cannot be no other sports played in these fields, such as football or field hockey or lacrosse. Yet, I have a 176-page report of Dan Malloy's campaign contributions. And Field Turf Tarkett and everyone I just mentioned donated to Dan Malloy's campaign in 2008, 2009, when he was just an exploratory committee. So if this is not a direct result of pay to play here in Stanford, I don't know what is. But Dan Malloy installs a soccer field that has shredded tire crumb in it, that has 13 different carcinogens and chemicals that are in it, and he touts himself as environmentally friendly. I really don't think so. Here's another one of Dan Malloy's capital projects, the Urban Transitway Project. $131 million of aggravation that has nearly been spent, all of it, on this capital project improving the roads here in Stanford, thus ruining city businesses. Here we are still now on Elm Street and Myrtle Avenues with this project. Nearly all of the $131 million has been spent, and yet the government has lost $32 million of appropriated money that could have helped finish the funding of this. But currently the city does not have the remaining money to finish phase 2 of the project. One has to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen, the Board of Reps voted for this, then they halted it, then they voted it again, and yet currently we now have the Board of Finance putting the halt on the project temporarily because they're not sure if the city knows how to pay for it, thus transferring federal grants into bonds. And yet, who suffers? The Stanford residents. This has been over a 2-year project, and yet nowhere completion. Here we have an extension of Myrtle Avenue, part of the first phase of the project, still going on, and yet the roads had to be redug because they didn't install the proper piping in it the first time. Yet, so it has to be done again. More taxpayer expense. Here we have the blinking lights that have been blinking for nearly 3 months, still not completed. I ask you, this is what residents have been living with for over 2 years on infrastructure. Yeah, what do you see here, folks? We have the Transitway project. No sidewalks. You see electrical poles in front of you. No sidewalks. Another debacle of the Transitway project. Right here next to the train station. No sidewalks. Clearly, if we pan over to the sidewalk over here, you'll see that's all brand new. This goes for at least a half a mile, folks. So let's recap the Urban Transitway project. $131 million, all of it nearly spent. They're running out of money. Over 2 years on the project, and yet our Board of Reps voted to suspend it, then vote not to suspend it. Our Board of Finance is questioning how the funds are being allocated by the city, if they're going from federal grants to AAA bonds. Folks, this project is a mess, and this is the millions of dollars that Dan Malloy claims he went to Washington and went and got, and yet the city lost $32 million of it to finish the project. And now, who's left holding the bag? Stanford taxpayers. And yet, ironically, after doing more research on this project, we found that Dan Malloy's former campaign manager, who represents a law firm here in town, has made the law firm $759,000 in 2 years worth of legal fees off the Transitway project. I ask you, if that's not steer to play contracts, I don't know what is. And yet, here we have Stanford's Old Town Hall, completely refurbished to millions of dollars under Dan Malloy's administration. The problem? that we don't have one single tenant and haven't had one in nearly 3 years. Again, Dan started a restoration committee of several leaders in the community, yet they haven't been able to get one single tenant. And yet the renovation is still not completed after 3 years. Come on, I'll show you the back end of the town hall. Here we are on the back end of town hall with the restoration not even nearly complete and not so much as one tenant. And yet the businesses on Bank Street have been suffering for over 3 years due to the lack of parking by the construction workers on the project going on. Yet this tree-lined business of Bank Street, yet all the businesses are getting hurt by this project here. And yet, still no tenant. Dan Malloy left them high and dry. But what else is new? Let me share some more facts with you. See, folks, right through those trees and over my shoulder, that's the city of Stamford. City of Stamford, where Dan Malloy has been mayor for 14 years. And let me assure you, for those 14 years, we've had tax increases every year, sometimes at the rate of three times the rate of inflation. Yet he's taxed so high, he's taxed the senior citizens, the very founders of this community and this city, who built this city. He's taxed them right out of town because they can't afford to live here because of the high taxes. Then Dan Malloy touts he's brought 5,000 jobs to the city of Stamford. Let me assure you that is so false. There's 6,700 jobs not available currently right now, and that's a fact. We did our research. So Dan Malloy's campaign promises and statements, how he brought so many companies and jobs here, is a big fat lie, folks. Let me assure you that everyone is scrounging in Stamford, as in the rest of the state, for jobs, and not what Dan Malloy claims to have brought to the city. I can assure you that a lot of the companies that have moved here because of the tax break the state gives and not what Dan Malloy has promised them. Here's another issue. The WPCA, the Water Pollution Control Authority, again, which is right over my shoulder. Okay? Stamford dries its sewer sludge into pellets that it sells for fertilizer. Stamford did spend $17 million to build a pelletizer and spends $3 million a year to run it. But it doesn't sell any pellets. The plant uses large amounts of electricity and burns 600,000 worth of natural gas a year, adding greenhouse gases by the ton, and is losing money in the process. This is all under Dan Malloy's administration. This is his ideas. In his 2009-2010 city budget, which included $40 million over 2 years to build a waste-to-energy plant using the pellets as fuel. As a group of Stamford citizens, the watchdog group that we represent, including engineers and financial experts, we debunked this project and had it terminated. A $40 million gasification unit that's never been tested in the United States or anywhere else, Dan Malloy felt it could be proven in Stamford at your taxpayer dollars. And yet we fought the good fight and we beat him at it. Let me show you another situation that involves Dan Malloy under his tenure, okay? And that would be Schofield Town Road. Schofield Town Road is in North Stamford, where our taxpayers to the north live, and unfortunately for over 40 years they have lived on contaminated land, and it's just coming to fruition in the past few years. And there's an article in the Stamford Advocate on January 21st of this year that residents were seeing going around, and they found 28 55-gallon drums and one 200-gallon oil tank from the property. And when they had them tested by the EPA, okay, 14 volatile organic compounds, 8 semi-organic compounds, 3 pesticides, 1 PC, and 17 metals. See, folks, the pictures don't lie. Here we have the drums to prove it. Here we have the water runoff that goes into their drinking system and well water up there. See, the residents up there are naturally concerned. They think their water is contaminated along with their land, and yet Dan Malloy has chosen to do nothing about it until his last year as mayor of Stamford. I can assure you folks, don't believe Dan Malloy's campaign promises. We know, we live here. We challenged Dan Malloy, and yet we didn't win it all, but we have fought the good fight. See, some of us are Democrats, some of us are Republicans, some of us are independents. It doesn't matter what affiliation you are, but to know, do your homework and do your research on the facts of Dan Malloy, and don't believe him, because he's nothing but a pay-to-play politician. We're not an endorsed group, we're not endorsing any group, we haven't solicited any funds, and we're not accepting any funds. What we are is a taxpayer watch group that watches out for the interests of our community and our neighborhood. and we fight the good fight. A vote for Dan Malloy is going to be on your hands. Don't make me come back and tell you I told you so.